Hello guys and welcome back. Let's roll the intro and then we can just chapter 2. All right, so chapter 2, it's all about accessing the command line. So it's actually the name of the chapter, which is access the command line. Yeah, they go straight to the point because they know that Linux, it's basically a command line based operating system, right? So even though we do have the graphical interface, which I'm going to show you right now, we will not use the graphical interface per se that much. So basically, throughout this video series, the graphical interface is going to be a way to access the command line, because that's where we're going to live most of the time. We're going to revisit the graphical interface more till the end of the video series, okay? But for the most part, we're going to be using the command line, and right now you're going to see I'm going to use the graphical interface just to show you how we can get to the command line through the graphical interface. But for the remainder of this video series, I am not going to use the graphical interface all that much, only if I need the browser or stuff that, it's much easier to show using the graphical interface, okay? So if I go here, you guys can see the graphical login screen of one of my example systems. So this is Oracle Linux, like I told you before. If this was a Red Hat system, it will be very similar. Okay, it will be just it will be just how do you call it, cosmetically different, but technically the same. Okay, so you are not. I will. If you guys want me to, I'm not sure if I'll do this video or not. I'm debating. But if you want me to do a video specifically how to install a Rocky Linux VM, let me know in the comments below, and I will happy to do a separate video all about that. So when I installed this Rocky Linux VM, I created an extended an add-on user called student. It could be called anything, but I call him student. So that's what is popping here. So I'm going to click on the student user. I'm going to type his password, and I'm going to log in to the graphical interface. So that's quite simple to do. If you have experience with any other operating systems, it's the same thing. So it's the same thing. You cannot see it because I have to resize this. But on the top left, you see menu called activities. You can click it, and it's going to show you this bar below. You are not losing much. But I have to resize this. I can see it. I'll do it for the next video. You're not going to lose much. You just click activities, and you will see that there's a menu here and a search bar on the top. And I can try and let me see if I can do it like this, and maybe you can see it like this until I fix this in a more permanent fashion. Yeah, this works. Okay. So I can put it something around here, look pretty. Cool. Now you have here the activities menu. Okay, you have it here, and it's going to show you the search bar. Okay, and below you have this how do you call it, these icons. One of the icons is terminal, and that's how you access the command line. Okay, so that's basically it. You have access to the command line. I will not use this command line not all that often. I'm going to use a different method to get to these machines because it's easier for me. But if you are using a graphical interface, you just click the activities. You see this thing pop up in the bottom. You click terminal, and you are basically good to go. So as you can see, the lettering is very small. So if you do Control+ on a keyboard, you can increase the font size. Control+, and you can just make this a little bit easier to read. Okay, I'm not going to use this all that much. I'm going to use a different method using these terminals here. Okay, because it's easier for me to do so. Okay, it's much easier for me to use this approach. It's much more manageable to me, but that's just me. But if you want to access, you click activities on the top left and you hit terminal and you have your terminal and you are good to go. I'll come back here. Well, since I'm here, I can use it. So as you can see here, you can get lots of information just by opening a terminal. You can see here what is your username, and this is the @ symbol. It's just the @ symbol, nothing special. Then you can see your machine name, your server name. And this is about something I'm going to discuss on chapter 3, which is kind of the file system location where you are at right now. The tilde means something special, but I'll get into it later. And the $ means that you are right now a regular user. You probably see the $ and the hashtag sign more often. So hashtag sign means you are the root user, and usually the $ means you are just a non-root user. In other words, a regular user. Okay. So this is a it's a server with the graphical interface installed. If you have one server or any server that does not have the graphical interface installed, then you see something like this. You just log in as usual. I just mistyped the password because that's me doing fat fingers. And you log in as usual. You'll see the same information. Here I am not able to increase the text size, but you guys kind of see it. So as you can see, I have here the same, basically the same thing. Okay, the $, the student at Rocky2, which is my secondary machine, and the tilde, which has special meaning. It's the same thing, only not using the graphical interface with the machine without any graphical interface installed, which is most likely the most common use case you will find. It is a machine without the graphical interface installed. Okay. Either way, is the functionalities of the graphical terminal or the more pure terminal in a way, they are the same. What you can do with one, you can do with the other. It's just fine. The graphical interface has the option, has the advantage of, you can choose your fonts, you can increase the font size, you can create secondary windows. So, like you can imagine, graphical interface has some comfort advantages, but in terms of functionality, it's the same thing. What you do here is what you do there. They are basically the same thing. Okay, no difference there. It's just a matter of interfacing with the terminal. If you are happy with using this method, be my guest. If you prefer this method, be my guest. It's the same thing. Some purists say that this is better. Some people more relaxed like me say this is the same thing, and I do tend to agree. So, as you can experience throughout this video series, you can just pick the one you prefer, and you are good to go. It's basically the same thing. Okay. As the video series progresses, I'm going to show you how to install a graphical interface on a server that does not have the graphical interface installed yet. In this case, my RH1 machine has the graphical interface installed from scratch, so it's already ready to go. Again, you can use this one or that one. It's the same thing. So, however, if you are using like this without a graphical interface, so if you are using graphical interface, you have this option of multiple windows, which is nice, but you have something similar here too. So if you are using something that is purely text, you can do a keyboard combination of doing Control, Alt, and for example, F2 or F3. And as you can see, when I hit F3, I have access to another terminal. Okay. So this is going to depend on your Linux distribution, versions, how old the Linux is. But you have access to multiple. So I have the F1, F2, F3, the F4, F5, and F6 should be another one. Yeah. F7 should be not there. So F1, F2, F3, F4, F5, F6, F7, F6. Okay, so can Control Alt F1, which is TT-0, Control Alt F2. I'm not, F1 is F1, F2 is TT-2, F3 to tips on blah, 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 blah. Never mind. Control F1, Control F2, Control F3, Control F4, Control F5, Control F6. So in this machine, I can go do Control Alt F1 till to 6, and I have 6 different terminals to work with, and each one is doing its own thing. I have something. The same thing happens with the server installed with graphical interface installed. It's the same thing with slight differences. So if I do Control F1, I get this is kind of reserved for the graphical interface. And there we go. Control F2, Control F3, Control F4. It's slightly different. You can experiment because it's going to depend and vary a little bit depending on the Linux you are using, depending on the distribution you are using, depending of the graphical interface you have installed. But now that I speak of it, the graphical interface you are using here, it's GNOME. What is a graphical interface? It's kind of the Windows decorations. It's, in my opinion, it's just that. It's just decoration. It's just look and feel. It's just the feel and the look of the graphical interface. You have GNOME, you have KDE, you have CXFCE, you have Window Maker, you have these dozens of different graphical interfaces or different environments you can use. In my opinion, it's just a matter of personal preference. Since GNOME is pre-installed with Rocky and GNOME is also pre-installed with RHEL, I just stick with those because it's already there. I don't have to install it myself. It just works. And since if you are using RHEL, most likely you are creating an enterprise server. So you won't be using the graphical interface all that much. It's just something you can use to fall back into in case of anything that graphical interface will make your life easier, right? So GNOME will work. GNOME works for me, and I have no issues with GNOME. So I just use GNOME for the most part. But again, it's personal preference. Put down in comments below which one you prefer. If you agree or if you disagree for me, it's fine. You can just say your own opinions, and everybody's entitled to it. Okay. Once you have access to the graphical to the command line, I'll stick with this for now, but I will use a bigger font. Since I'm already here, I'll just stick with this. I don't see why not. Let's just wrap this chapter up with some common used command line utilities. Okay. I will not go through every single command line utility that any Linux or RHEL has available, because that will just be completely dumb, because it's just an infinite list between built-in tools and other tools you can install from third parties and yourself. But you can go through a small toolkit of most common tools you would use on an enterprise server like RHEL. Without any special order, this is not personal preference. This is just how they order this on the official content. Let's just go through a few most commonly used tools. Nothing special, just to get your juices flowing and your motivation going. And of course, throughout the video series, we will just add more and more on top of this. Okay. So, for example, they start with the Who Am I tool. Okay, the Who Am I? It's part of a series of tools that say similar things. So Who Am I? The tool itself kind of tells everything. So Who Am I tells me who am I. So I am the student user on currently, because now it's quite obvious that I'm the student user. It's quite obvious, but in some situations it's kind of it gets a little bit confusing to know who you are since the Who Am I. Okay. So Who Am I will tell you that. There are other tools, for example, the ID command also tells you that with the different detail. Again, if I show you multiple tools, I'm not telling you which one is the best, is the best, or it's better than the other, because that's just stupid. All of them have a purpose and a time to be used. Put on the comments below if you do disagree. But there are many tools with similar purposes, and just pick the ones you remember or the ones you want to use. I mean, who we are to say which one is better. Okay, based on personal preference, based on the one I remember at that time, just use the one you like the most. Going back to the Who Am I? All of these tools are called are running on a terminal, yes, but the terminal has a shell. So I'm going to make some comments, and to do a comment, I'm going to use the hashtag. This is going to be something, not a command. Okay, so this is going to be something like, okay, this is going, if I put an hashtag, the terminal is going to ignore. It's like a commentary. So below this terminal, so this is the terminal tool from GNOME, right? So, but below this terminal tool, there is a thing called the shell, and the shell. What the shell does is going to convert text strings into kernel commands. So, if I type "who am I," it's just a text string, but this is going to convert this text string into something that the kernel can understand. That's what a shell does. And at this point, we are using the bash shell. Okay, so the PS command is called process tree. We'll discuss this a little bit in more detail later. But the process tree is kind of the Windows Task Manager, but in text mode. So the bash is going to be our shell, and this is the shell that is going to read these commands and convert them into something that the kernel can understand and actually execute with some order or some type of result for us. Okay. So if there are many shells, you have the not that many, but different shells. Bell shell, you have the shell, TC shell, and others. But in Linux, we use by default the bash, which is the burn again shell, and that's the one we use by default. Again, no special reason to change unless you have some specific motivation to do so. So we'll just stick with the bash for now, which is perfectly fine. If I had not mentioned this to you guys in this video, you probably will not even know that this exists, and this will create no actual stress to you. It just works. Okay. At this point, you don't have to worry too much about this. However, if you are doing tasks that requires the bash, like some type of scripts or automation, some scripts are built for bash. So if you use a different shell, maybe the script will not work. But that's a different story. Bash will work for you, and that's what you're going to get. Okay. So, for example, if I do the who am I, again, I can do -- help. This is going to give me a help of this command. This will apply to 99% of the commands. For example, ID -- help. Some commands do not support this, but that's again something to be discussed later on. Most of the commands will support this. Okay, so you do the command -- help, and this I'm going to put this over my head. And this is going to show you some help about the command itself. There are other ways to obtain help. We'll discuss this later on. Yes, but this is the one I'm going to use for now. So who am I will show you who you are. That's not too complicated. If you want to run commands in sequence, for example, who am I followed by the ID command, you can do the column. Okay, this is going to, the semicolon, and this is going to run commands in sequence. Other commands that are on my list, you can use the date command to show you what time is it, and set the time. However, the date command is kind of has a easier command to use, at least in my opinion, which is time date CTL. This is going to allow you to see the time, set the time zones in a much easier fashion. Some hardcore Linux fans use the date command for everything, which is fine. But since the time.ctl released, I do prefer it because it's much simpler to use than the date command. But the date command is still a legacy command that can be used in some situations. I will not run these commands, at least not right now. I will do it later. So you have the passwd command. I will cancel it with Control-C. Control-C will cancel this. Passwd will allow you to change the password of the current user, as you can see. If I was the admin or the root user, I will show the root user later on. I don't need it right now. As a root user, I can change the password for any user of the system. Okay. But right now, if I run passwd as student, because that's who I am, as we could find out with the who am I command. Okay, I am student. So if I run passwd as student, I am allowed to change my own password. However, I have to fulfill some security policies by default, which is letters, numbers. It has to be an X amount of character sizes. So you cannot choose any password at all. You have to comply with the security policy of your current system, but you are entitled to change your password at your given leisure, unless someone changes the default security policies. But if not, then any user can change its password using the passwd command. You just need to make sure that you are using a complex password. Basically, that's it. Okay. Another utility that they like us to show you, it's the file utility. So one thing that you need to understand that there is a saying that says in Linux, everything is a file. Okay. What does this mean? Everything's a file means that literally everything is a file. Okay. So a directory is a file is a file, hardware components are represented by a file. So in Linux, everything is a file. And many files don't have an extension. For example, in Windows, we have the .exes for executables, .txts for text files, .xlss for Excel files, and so on and so forth. Here in Linux, extensions matter little to nothing, even though some files have a so-called extension, .something. It's not considered as an extension per se. We call it an extension because we come from Windows and have that heritage. So let's call it an extension. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's not an extension per se. In Windows, it has more relevance than in Linux. Okay. In Linux, it's just part of the text. It's just part of the file name. So if the file name is called .txt, it's an extension for us, the human being, but for the system, it means nothing. It's just part of the file name. It's useful, it's handy, but it's a little bit abstract for the system. Okay. And since everything is a file, sometimes there are files on different locations that are different, have different content. For example, I will show you a classical example, which is this one here and this one there. I'm sorry, this one. Okay, let's do this again to make things a little bit cleaner. Okay, cool. So if you see, the first one is an executable and the second one is a text file. So they have the exact same file name. They have the exact same file name. Okay, but they are very different file types. So one is an executable, which is the one I just executed to trying to change the password of the user. The second one, it's a text file. So they are completely different files with completely different ways to deal with each file, but they have the exact same name, even though they are in different folders. And the file system hierarchy, I will discuss this on a later chapter. They are on different folders. One is executable, one is a text file. So the file utility allows me to find out what type of file we are looking at. This is a directory, and so on and so forth. So the file utility allows us to visualize what file type we are dealing with. The next one is the CAT. Oops, sorry. Good thing I just did this typo, because if I do this, it's different from this. Okay, so in Linux, case matters. Okay, case matters. So if I do CAT, the CAT command is called the concatenate command. This command has several reasons to exist, but if you're going to see this one and going to check this one as one of the many examples that we can use cat for, and that is for checking the contents of a text file in a non-destructive manner. So if I do this, it's a text file, which means that I can just check the contents with CAT. There are other tools that allows us to see contents of text files, okay? But I will show you one next. But CAT, if you do this, it's almost impossible to make any destructive changes to the file, especially since we are not root, we are regular user. That will be completely impossible. But the CAT, even with root, unless you do something really stupid or really crazy, it's non-destructive. Other can be used the more. The more command is similar, and the less command is similar. Okay, so more is less is more. You can use both, experiment with both, and you can then choose the one you prefer. So they also, the more and less also allows you to check contents of text files in the non-destructive manner. You have also the head utility. This allows you to see the first lines of a file. By default, you can see, let's do it the lazy way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So you can see by default the top 10 lines of a text file. You also have the tail utility that will show you the bottom 10 files, 10 lines of a text file. So head top, tail bottom. It's like a cat or a dog, right? Head and tail. And you can also customize the how many lines you can see with the -n. And in this case, I'm just seeing one. Okay. So you can do the head -- help, and you can get more assistance about that, and also the tail. So tail -1, and you will see just the last line. So head top, tail bottom, and you can actually see the top of the file or the bottom part of the file. Also have the WC command. WC command means word count. Okay, so let's use the same file as reference. So you can see here lots of information. Okay, you can see here that you have this means lines, words, and characters. Lines, words, and characters. You can do the -L. This will just show you that how many lines. You can see the C for characters, and W for words. So as you can see, this file has 37 lines, which is composed by 90 different words, and this has a total of 2,113 characters. So this can be used in conjunction with other commands. For example, if I do something like this, and I can do the pipe means the output of the left command, it's the input of the right hand command. So if I do it like this is going to get the output of this command and give it to this guy. So this guy is going to count how many lines this output created. So tail created 10 lines, which it's something we already know. So if I do the -n5 or 6, whatever, it created 6 lines. Okay. So tail means this is going to count how many, in this example, this is going to count how many lines the previous command created. So can we use multiple combinations of the left command and the right command? We will do this throughout the video series. So no need to force other examples because they just will occur naturally. Okay. Last but not least, on this kind of initial toolkit for the command line, for the bash, it's the command history, which is quite nice. So if I type history here, you will see how many commands I typed and which ones they were. So I have typed already 43 commands, and these are the commands I just typed, which is quite nice. So if I do exclamation mark and 35, this is going to re-execute the 35 line. So if I want to re-execute the command that I already did before, I can just say which line to re-execute, and he will do it. Or you can just select. This is using the graphical interface, of course. By using the graphical interface, you can select and use the middle mouse button. Nowadays, it's the wheel. So if you click on the wheel, it will just paste what you just selected. So I can select, click the wheel, select, click the wheel, and it was just paste what I selected. Or if you want to be a little bit more tech savvy, you can just do question mark and the number, and it will just execute that position. You can also use the up key and down key on your cursors. It will just scroll through the history. Okay, that's fine. Or you can do Control P, Control N, Control previous and next. It will do the same thing. So there are many ways of us to understand what have we done, what commands we did, and get kind of a history of previous actions that we just did. using the history, the cursor keys, okay? Or, well, there are other ways, but you can explore this as the week goes, as the video series goes by. You don't have to force anything right now. Let me just review my notes to see if I. Oh yeah, we can do Control R. Ctrl R allows you to search on the history. For example, if I type tail, it found the tail command. Control R tail, and you can just search on your command history for recently executed commands, and you can just redo it without having to type history and scream through with your eyes. Control R, and you can type something about the command. He will find it for you, which is quite nice, quite handy. Okay. Oh, and of course the tab completion. So let's say I want to do cat to the etc/passwd. Let's say I want to do this. Okay. So I can do cat /etc/pas, and I hit the tab key. As you can see, the tab key auto-completed. So it is better for you to experiment yourself, but the tab key will complete file names and file paths and executable names. For example, if I want to execute the passwd command, I type pass, hit the tab key, and he auto-completes. So get yourselves acquainted with this, because it's going to be a time saver for you. So you don't have to retype commands, and if you have commands that you use frequently, you just have to exercise your pinky to use the tab key to get more out of it. That's it. So chapter 3 about using command line utilities. Chapter 3 or chapter 2? I'm sorry, chapter 2. How to access command line and first hints on how to use a command line. Like and subscribe if it helps for chapter 3. Subscribe to get notified for chapter 3, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers, guys.